Good evening. Welcome to the Hindustan Times Kalakura Arts Festival 2017 Literature section. Our first panel for today is titled War and Peace, and our speakers will weigh in on conflict, national identity, and the unusual story of Ambassador Nambiar. Mystery awaits. We have today Vappala Balachandran, Indian National Security Intelligence Specialist, former Indian police officer, and author, in conversation with Salil Tripathi, contributing editor at Mint and Caravan. Our accomplished panel needs a little introduction before they begin. Vappala Balachandran is a columnist and author who was member of the two-man high-level committee appointed by the government of Maharashtra to inquire into the police response during the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. His published works are National Security and Intelligence Management, A New Paradigm, published in 2014, and A Life in Shadow, The Secret Story of ACN Nambiar, a forgotten anti-colonial warrior, which was published in 2016. Our next speaker, Salil Tripathi, is a contributing editor at Mint and Caravan in India. He is currently chair of PEN, International Writers in Prison Committee. He has been a correspondent in India and internationally, and has written for various Indian and international publications. He was assistant editor at the Indian Post and senior correspondent at India Today. He is also an advisor to several global initiatives involving business and human rights. He is the author of books on Hindu nationalism, the Bangladesh War, and travel. In 2015, he received the Red Ink Award from the Mumbai Press Club for Human Rights Journalism. Welcome to our accomplished panelists, and over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for coming today. This is promised to be a fascinating session because it's about a very unusual and very interesting man. And the person telling us the story is also has many interesting stories to tell because of the kind of life he has led. Bala, before we turn to the book, I thought I wanted to talk about the work you've done, and in particular focusing on looking at conflict as an intelligence officer, and in particular how you have looked at conflict, both as someone observing it, as someone who wants to help a government take decisions, to take the right steps that follow from it, and how that might different, and then we will go to how that differs from what Nambiar would have done.
Salil, there is a difference between a press correspondent and an intelligence officer. Both, of course, serve the interests of the society. The intelligence officer does it in a confidential manner. He gives the inputs for policy making. I'll only quote one instance because I can go on quoting several instances, but after the withdrawal of Afghanistan, as you know, is vital for India's security. 1988-89, the Soviet withdrawal took place, and at that time, every Western government was telling us that Najibullah will fall immediately because he is propped up by the Soviet power. So at that time, the then Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, sent my boss, who was the Chief of RAW, and I was a staff officer, on a secret visit to Kabul. And we met our contacts, and we came and reported to the Prime Minister saying that there is no immediate threat to his rule, and he will continue indefinitely. And this is exactly what happened. Although our Indian embassy, in a panicky fashion, evacuated the entire families and all that immediately. This is 1988, and he lasted till 92. But what happened after 92 was he resigned, and then he was ousted from power, and then he was a prisoner not prisoner, he was actually taking asylum in the UN compound. Then what happens that the contrary to the Western governments or intelligence expectations, the 7-party Peshawar Mujahideen and 8-party Shia Mujahideen did not coexist. They started fighting among themselves. The internecine quarrel started. They each one started capturing territories, and it was an utter confusion. Each group was supported by foreign powers, one by Pakistan, one by Saudi Arabia, one by Uzbekistan, and whatnot. So again, it was a very confusing situation. And out comes in 1994, the Taliban. And nobody knew from where they arrived. So at that time, we were forced to raise a very high-level source in one of the Mujahideen. And they said...
And you were in Delhi throughout.
We were in Delhi. At that time, what revealed was something very startling. The ISI was backing a man called Hikmatyar, Gulbuddin Hind Pankitya. Unknown to ISI, or perhaps known to them, they couldn't do anything. Prime Minister Banerjee started supporting the Taliban. And through her Interior Minister, Babar, Nasirullah Babar. And that exactly what happened. Why was it done? Because the Mujahideen were fighting, and there is only one force which can enforce law, tame the warlords, and in a way, tacitly, even United States agreed with this. So this is one instance in which I can talk about a warlike situation. In fact, it was a war in which the national interests were protected by the intelligence. Similarly, I'm sure if Mr. Patrick Benoni had come, he would have quoted several instances with the journalists also would have done it. But I just wanted to draw your attention to this thing. I will tell one more incident. It doesn't pertain to us. How an active intelligence service can serve the country. In 2007, 22 church workers from South Korea were abducted by the Taliban. And Taliban, in order to frighten the country, South Korea, they asked for a huge ransom. We don't even know how much it is. And then the South Korean National Intelligence Service swung into action. And they managed to rescue 19 of them. Not through force, but through negotiation. How they did it, it is still a secret. 2 people are killed, 19 of them were rescued. That was the time, tragically, our own infrastructure workers in Afghanistan were abducted. 2 of them were killed from Border Patrol Organization. We could not do anything. So here is one case in which we could do something, and here is another case in which we could not do anything. Thank you.
So this clearly means that when, as an intelligence person, you're gathering information, the political leadership that has to act upon it needs to make those strategic decisions about whether to negotiate or not. And if so, what kind of incentives to provide. And that requires sagacity and wisdom. Now, do you, as an intelligence officer, play a role in that? Or do you lay out options for them? How does that work out?
No, say for example, in the South Korean example, it is their own intelligence which did the negotiation. But in South Korean example, it is their own intelligence which did the negotiation. It was all secret. Nobody else did it. But in certain other cases, for example, you would have known of the case of Israel had to release 1,288 Hamas prisoners for one soldier,
yes,
who was kept by Hamas in custody for more than, I think, about 8 years or something.
Yeah.
Similarly, United States had to release one soldier, and we don't know what all demand they had, again from Hamas. So it depends upon. Now, for example, when Kandahar hijacking took place, it's again our intelligence official who played a role of negotiating. But unfortunately, we couldn't do anything because we had to face the Pakistan supported Taliban. So it depends upon situation to situation.
How much autonomy do you have, and how much leverage do the political leadership have in a situation like that?
Well, major decision we have to consult the political leadership. Otherwise, we cannot. Any country, you cannot. The intelligence cannot do everything. They have to consult the political leadership, and finally, the decision maker is the politician.
Right. Now let's turn to this very fascinating book that you've written about A.C. and Nambiar. I don't want to say who he is. I think it's best you tell us who he is and why he is important, and why should everyone here know about him.
A.C. and Nambiar is hardly known in India. He was a journalist. He went to England as a student, stayed back as a, he started working for some Indian newspapers, especially Hindu. In fact, as a student in Madras, he was an apprentice for Hindu. When he went to London as a student, he started writing for Hindu and some other papers. Then what happened was that he married Sarojini Naidu's younger sister, Suhasini Chattopadhyay. Then, at that time, it must have been, I think, 1922 or so, they found that things in Berlin were better. And in fact, Sarojini Naidu's son was also there as a medical student. So they shifted to Berlin. Post Second World War, First World War, the situation in Berlin was such that it was center of international politics, intrigues, espionage, and revolution. It was like that. So everybody whom you meet there would belong to one category or the other. There were so many of them. Agnes Medley, for example, she came from United States. I don't know whether you heard about her. She was a revolutionary. She was arrested for waging the war against United States and United States allies because she was actually a clerk of Lala Lajpat Rai. And then she wrote something and then she was arrested. On release, she came out to Berlin. And like that, it was a congregate, for example, French communists, Indian communists like M.N. Roy, originally, if you know, M.N. Roy started as a communist. They were all used to congregate. That at that time, Nambiar.
He also founded the Communist Party of Mexico.
Yeah, Communist Party of Mexico, Communist Party of India also.
Indeed,
that's what they say. Yeah. So Nambiar was thrown into this particular group, and one more important thing is that his son-in-law was Virendranath Chattopadhyay. Virendranath Chattopadhyay had gone to England to study law, to be a barrister. But his mind was not in studies. Actually, he went for ICS, didn't clear that exam. Then he studied law. Then what happened is that Mr. Savarkar was also there at that time. And there was a simmering anti-imperial group which was coming. And so Virendranath Chattopadhyay started exhorting for open revolution and all that. So the British government almost expelled him. Actually, before he was expelled, he ran away from there because he was involved in some cases and all that. He came over to Paris. From there, finally, the relationship between old Germany and England was such that German people gave him asylum. So he was there in Berlin. So Nambiar, since he was a brother-in-law, he started living with him. And so the British intelligence started watching him, both Nambiar as well as Virendranath Chattopadhyay. This went on for some time. And then the Reichstag fire took place. Immediately thereafter, 4,000 communists, including Nambiar, were arrested. He was sort of maltreated by Hitler's people. And then he was expelled after about 6 weeks in prison actually he was expelled from Germany. He wanted to go to Austria, but then he stayed back in Prague. There in 1933 he met Subhash Chandra Bose. By that time everybody knew about his reputation, that he was a fairly senior journalist who had very good contacts. So Bose went on talking to him about his plan. That was the time when Bose had not actually escaped from India. He had gone on parole, medical parole. He was there in Vienna. From there, he came to Prague to meet the then President Benes and others. And then Bose unveiled his plan, saying that India should be more militant in the freedom struggle and all that.
How did Bose trust him? How
Yeah.
did that relationship happen? Yes.
There are two stories about it. One is Bose had heard about his reputation in Berlin because he was very good with youngsters, he was very good with students, and also some of the intellectuals there who were being contacted by Bose. They recommended that Nambiar is a good thing. But actually, this came much later. In 1933, that had not happened at all. That he was only talking to him and he wanted his help, logistical help there. For example, he asked Nambiar to accompany him to the British consulate, and Poland was not marked on his passport. So Nambiar took him there. Like that, some sort of help that was given. Then Bose went on contacting him. Every time he used to come to Europe, yes, there is one, I forget his name. There was a man very close to Mussolini. It is there in the book, but I've forgotten his name. He sought out Nambiar's help to contact him to convey, to meet Mussolini. But he didn't meet, Bose did not meet Mussolini at that time, but he met him the next time. So, right from the beginning, Mr. Nambiar appeared to the British intelligence that he was a spy. In fact, at that time, they strongly suspected, because Virendranath Chattopadhyay was called in the British intelligence record. For writing this, I got a lot of British intelligence papers. They started the file, suspected Soviet spy. I must say, in 2014, there were a number of revelations in Indian press. These files were declassified from England. Suspected Soviet spy Nambiar. So the headlines in India were Deputy to Bose, close family friend of Nehru, Soviet spy Nambiar. Now, how did it happen? Now, as a bureaucrat, as an intelligence officer, I will tell you. When we start a file, we write, the heading is written as suspected Soviet spy or suspected Pakistan spy. Till his death, till this end, that same heading will continue. Whether he is really working for Soviets, or he has switched on to America, or he has switched on to some other country, Timbuktu, he will continue to be suspected Soviet spy. So that was a mechanical way of, actually the contents of the file did not reveal that he was working for Soviet Union at all. In fact, there was, except that he was seen in the company of communists, except that he had introduced Mr. Bose to some of the suspected TASS representatives in Berlin, he was not a spy at all. So coming back to this, Bose started using him for various works and all that. Then what happened is that Nambiar was a persona non grata for the Nazis. Then Bose went back to India and Nambiar lost touch with him. And he did not know because Nambiar was fleeing from Prague because the German troops came. So he ran away from there to Paris. And unfortunately, the German forces followed and came out to Paris. From there he had to run away. He went to Biarritz, he went to so many places. Ultimately, he was in a small village on Spanish border. He thought he was very happy. So, So I think you may ask now how Bose selected him.
Yeah, because in the interim, of course, Bose comes to India. The famous Tripura Congress takes place.
Yeah.
He and Gandhi have a fight.
Yeah.
He then is in jail.
Yeah.
He's sick. And he makes this dramatic escape from his house and
Yeah.
goes to Afghanistan and turns up in Germany.
Yeah. Nambiar did not know anything at that
Yes.
time. Of course, he might have known because he was getting the Indian papers. He was still writing. He was
Yeah.
still writing for some Indian papers. He might have known.
Yeah.
So now this is the most dramatic thing. And so when he was sitting there on that cafe and enjoying his morning coffee, here comes a tall man who looked like a military officer, and he went on asking him, "Where can I see Mr. A.C.N. Nambiar?" So he said, "Mar gaya." Now this fellow is a German because the whole of France, practically everywhere under German control. Although southern France was a Vichy regime, but he thought, I am finished now. These fellows are going to catch him. He said, no, I'll give you a password. Bose. He said, what Bose? No, Bose has called you to Paris. He said, no, I am not going to come to Paris. These Germans will arrest me. No, he says, no, I will see to it that you are escorted properly to Paris. And then, so this man, the German, had even brought his a sort of, because when you go from one area to the other, you have to get in the wartime, you have to get the exit slip. So this is something very, Mr. Nambiar had a very good sense of humor. So he says that this German had brought wrongly written that his place of birth is Calcutta. Actually, he was born in Tellicherry in Kerala. So Nambiar pointed out, Nambiar didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to anywhere because he just wanted to be left alone. He said, look, this is wrongly written. So he takes a pen. The German takes his pen and writes, pray the Tellicherry. Calcutta is supposed to be near Tellicherry according to. And he told them, the French people, geography is not their strong point. Then he told him, okay, I'll come later. He didn't go. Then next time, again.
I'm glad Patrice Fanoni is not here today.
I'm sorry. No offense,
right.
man. No offense, man.
No, it's all right.
Anyway, so then after about a month, again, Bose sent him another Indian there. He did not go. Third time, Bose sent him with a stern message, and that was a Count, who was a senior officer in the German government. He said, you come now, you come now to Paris. There Bose met him. And Bose at that time was, he said, look, you have to come and help me in Berlin, in my work. Then he told him, what are you going to do? Then he went on unveiling what his job was. He told him about his quarrel with Gandhiji, and he criticized Nehru, that Nehru was my friend. In fact, when Kamala Nehru was grievously ill, it is Bose who went and received her at Trieste he received her at Vienna. When they arrived, Indira Gandhi and Kamala Nehru came by ship to Trieste and then came out to Vienna. Then Nambiar went there and Nambiar accompanied them to Berlin actually for a surgery and all that. That way, Bose had an excellent relationship with Nehru, but he was very disappointed with Nehru for siding with Gandhiji against him. Anyway, he gave him the whole history. He said, look, my job is that I need to have the help from the foreign power, like Germany. Nambiar, originally in Prague, he had told him, saying that, look, you cannot depend upon Nazis. They will not help you. They are imperialistic as the British are. But he says, no, we have to do it. Now, at that time, he gave him two reasons. Now, this is something very significant. One is that the Congress has, without consulting the public, they have supported the war, for which there was no support in India at all. How could they mortgage the whole of country for the British on a war in which we have no interest? Second is very, very important. He says, Jinnah is bent upon the partition. The only way you can avoid partition is to have a foreign power attack, an attack from outside. At that time, the Muslims and Hindus will join together because Bose, as you all know, he was an extremely secular person. And the army that he made first in Germany and then in INA, it was a secular. I don't know much about INA. I am not a student of INA, but I know a lot about.
Well, there are two good stories about INA, which I know because I was a reporter in Singapore. And one is, of course, that at the mess for the soldiers, you ate what you were given, which could mean beef, which could mean pork, and there were no special considerations for others. The other thing which it did was that they used to publish a newspaper called the Azad Hind Times, and it was published in Roman script. Because he knew if it's Devanagari, the Sikhs and the Muslims may have a problem. If it's in Arabic or Urdu script, the Hindus and Sikhs will have a problem. If it's Gurmukhi, the others will be offended. So to avoid that, he had chosen a script that everybody had to make an effort to learn. So Bose was very much a secular.
These are the two reasons which he advanced for having an army and all that, and said, you have to come. We have to do work on two fronts. One is raising an army. How do you make an army? The Germans at that time had made a number of legions. They had a Cossack legion. They had a Polish legion. They had Arab legion. Incidentally, I'll look at my notes and tell you how Germany had planned actually the eastward expansion. Now, can I mention this?
Please,
Yeah. You see, there is a book by it's a German professor of history in Berend Martin. He has written Japan and Germany in Modern World. So he talks about the Treaty of Berlin actually. This was going on, the negotiations were going on between 1940. It was signed in January 1942, dividing the whole world into German influence and Japanese influence. The border dividing point was this Yenisei River in Siberia. Now, the Article 1 of that treaty is, Article 1 says, Japan recognizes and respects the leadership of Germany and Italy in the establishment of a new order in Europe. Article 2 is, Germany and Italy recognize and respect the leadership of Japan in a new order in Great East Asia. That means India was, Japanese thing and all that. So at that time, Germany had raised a commando force. It was a very big commando force. It was a mechanized unit with about 1,620 vehicles, their own artillery, their own intelligence unit, under a man called Walter Harbich. There was a center very near Stuttgart, and they were to go to Iraq as soon as Iraq was captured and start their push towards Transcaucasia and Afghanistan to India. That was the plan. And at the same time, Japan was giving a push from the Far East through Burma to India. So you will see that Germany already had an idea to push and unseat the British from India with the help of Japanese. Now, what really happened was, during the Second World War, the Germans suffered defeat in, as you know, in North Africa, so they couldn't push it forward, whereas Japan came up to Burma. So this is exactly what happened. Now, when Bose reached Berlin, the second time he reached Berlin, can I say that? Yeah. He reached clandestinely. He was given an Italian passport called Orlando Mazzotta. And even if you see some of the agreements between Germany and even in Italy, it is not Subhash Chandra Bose who is gone, it is Mazzotta who is gone. So all the records are in the name of Mazzotta. So he reached Berlin through Afghanistan because the German embassy there put him in a train up to Berlin, and he reached around 3rd April 1941. He presented a long memorandum, what all he wanted, to the German Foreign Office on 9th of April. There is no mention about the army. Now, this book, in fact, I started writing this book about Nambiar only after reading this book. This is by a German author, Rudolf Hartog. He was an interpreter in the India Legion, and he has written from the German Nazi declassified records. All these things are in this. And so, how did Bose get this idea of raising an Indian Legion? In those days, what was happening is that all the people, Indian soldiers who were captured by Italy and by Germany, they were brought to Europe. And so Bose saw some of the Indian soldiers watching the Hindi broadcast of BBC with such interest and dying for Mother India. So he thought, why not we turn these people, now like how Germany has done. They turned Cossacks into the Soviet Union, the Polish and Czech and Arabs and others. So why not we do it? And next he met this Harbich, who is in charge of this particular force, fully trained and waiting in Frankfurt for the signal to move to Iraq to give an onward push to Afghanistan. So he met him, and then he got this idea, why not we have a new army? Then at the same time, what was happening is that there was a man called Iqbal Shadai. If you read the history of independence, you will know Iqbal Shadai was based in Rome, and he was supporting Jinnah. In fact, he was raising a POW group of which would have supported Muslim League. So Bose didn't want that to happen. He wanted to take the leadership. But unfortunately, when Germany lost in North Africa, this Haldich unit was incorporated in the Indian Legion. That was the seed of the Indian Legion, but not that many people. The top officers, then the instructors were all Germans, but the soldiers were one by one taken. See here, I have given the, originally by 1942, 1,300 POW, prisoners of war, joined. In February 1943, 2,000. By 1944, their strength was 4,000. So that is how Indian Legion. Now, Bose found it very difficult to go and talk to these people and motivate them. Now, you see, if you see the mentality, or rather the mindset of a soldier, he is told that so-and-so is your enemy. He has been told in the British Army that Germans are your enemy, or Italians are your enemy. Suddenly, you are told that Germans are your friends and British are your enemy. There is a lot of confusion in his mind. So this was an extremely difficult task. But he did it with great fitness and I would say with great satisfaction, in the sense that they were all with him and they all obeyed him. Now, mind you, this is much before he started INA. INA was actually the continuation of what he did in Europe, and continuation of the strategic plan of German, Japanese people, etc. So, yeah.
Yeah, go on, yeah. No, just for context, I should say that the INA strength was close to about 19 to 20,000 to begin with at Ferrer Park on 18th or 16th of February in 1942 when Singapore fell. And when at its highest, its strength was supposed to be around 40,000. And it included a lot of people who were actually Tamil origin and working as plantation workers in Malaya and so on.
You see, you would be, if you see the history of Second World War, there are a lot of mention in the records that INA prisoners were taken, they were sort of charge-sheeted and punished. There is no mention of India Legion at all. So, practically, the British took care to see that Indian Legion was not mentioned at all. Even the Commander-in-Chief General Auchinleck, in his final orders, etc., he never mentioned Indian Legion because of the fact that if tomorrow, if the Indian soldiers come to know about it, that 4,000 groups of them were fighting against the British, it would mean a lot of demoralization of the Indian Army. So they carefully avoided mentioning anything about the Indian Legion. So that is why you don't find any Indian textbook. I don't think many of the textbooks about or books about Subhash Chandra Bose have mentioned about it till this man wrote about it. Another thing is the British took care to see that Indian Legion was a failure. It was that people were demoralized, that Bose was not accepted by Muslims, etc., etc. And they also said that it was like a joker force. The Bose, what they think, you will find that in, for example, I had to refer to a book written by Christopher Sykes. You must have heard about the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which carving out the whole of Europe and Middle East as spheres of influence of Britain and France. He is the grandson of Sykes. And so he also said that Bose was not successful in Indian Legion, etc., etc. And Rommel refused to take Indian Legion people among his army because they were not good at all. That is found. This man, who is a German, he has disputed that. He says Rommel sent his officers all the way to the center of Indian Legion was a place called Koningsbrook. He sent it there, and Koningsbrook top officers went to Rommel. They were to join the North Africa campaign, but unfortunately, what happened at that time, the reverses were there, so they were retained in Europe. They were deployed in Belgium. They were deployed in France. In France, of course, it was a big tragedy. So I mean, as regard the historians are concerned, it was a shadowy force about which the contours of which were not known to them. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So let's turn to Nambiar and his role then. Once Bose goes to Singapore, and once he then goes to Thailand, and then they move on towards Burma, the Rani of Jhansi regiment gets formed. What is he doing, Nambiar?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I mean, obviously the war ends in 1945. He comes across the news. What happens then?
Yeah, you see, let me come back to the second part of the thing. Bose's departure was kept as a secret. Actually, Nambiar told me, in fact, I have recorded in my book, that Bose told him that my theater of operation is the East. Because by the time when he met Hitler, Hitler did not encourage him. Hitler gave him only a propaganda machine. Incidentally, in the very first paper which Bose presented to the German Foreign Office, he said, whatever money you are spending on me, it's a loan. And this man has said that the first installment of the loan was repaid by Bose when he was in Japan. So it is not a charity by Germans or anything like that. It was a sheer, unfortunately, for example, I mean, later, of course, he died and there was no possibility of his returning and all that. So the Nambiar, he told Nambiar, why was I searching for you from Turkey to Morocco? I was searching all over, and I find that you are holed up in a small village on Spanish border and drinking coffee and sitting happily. So he said, no, you have to join me because I am going away. I am going away to Far East, which nobody knows, not even Abid Hassan, who accompanied him, knew about it. And I have seen, it was such the British intelligence recorder, in my book I call it a Chakravyuh, they had put around him, you know. And it is a grand saying that if he goes via Spain, we'll do this. If he goes via this, we'll do this. If he goes via Moscow, we'll do this. We'll even tell Molotov about it. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Is it okay now? Pardon? Okay.
Okay, let's go on.
Yeah. So sorry, I lost.
Yeah, you were talking about the Chakravyuh around Bose.
And the mode of departure was kept a secret. Only Nambiar was told. Then they went to a submarine in Kiel, and then they came to Atlantic coast, went all the way to Madagascar, transferred to a Japanese submarine, and then went to Far East. Then Nambiar was in charge. In fact, in his last meeting with Ribbentrop, foreign minister, he introduced him and said that, look, I am now going away. Mr. Nambiar will be in charge. The house where I used to stay will be occupied by him. It was in the diplomatic area in Berlin. So he was doing the same thing. He was doing the propaganda. He was, in fact, he opened another center of India Information Center, Free India Center in Paris. So he was doing actually as number two. And when Bose from Singapore, I think, or Bangkok, I forget now, when he formed his cabinet, Nambiar was a minister. And at a later stage, the Indian Legion was also merged officially on paper with INA. So he was doing exactly what Bose wanted him to do. And then, in fact, even this, for example, he wanted to get the police training method from Germany because he was almost confident of, chasing British away and taking over power in India. However, the agriculture, education, police methods, army, etc., and that all those things he was doing. But then it so happened that after the reverses in North Africa, the Allied campaign in Europe, and then bombing started. Then they had to run away. They had to ship their officers all over, and then they were arrested by the Allied people. So this was what he was doing for Bose at that time. Then he was put in concentration camp for about 6 months by the Allied people. Incidentally, he had the unique distinction of being arrested by Hitler, put in jail for 6 weeks, and then arrested by the Allied people for being a lackey of Hitler, and put in by the Allied people, and then 6 months concentration camp, and later he was released, and then he was trying to eke out a living. Then Nehru, by that time Nehru had assumed power in 1946, interim government started searching for him, and then called him over. That I did not mention. He knew Nehru very intimately from 1926, when Nehru had gone to Brussels for the anti-colonial conference. And there he became very close to the family, Motilal Nehru, and Nehru and Indira Gandhi was a young teenager at that time, 18 years old. And so they became almost part of the Nehru family. So after in fact, Nambiar's life, when I studied it, it has 3 phases. One is a pro-communist, or rather pro-leftist journalist in Berlin. Second is his tenure with Bose, which is most dramatic. And third is in peacetime with Nehru as a diplomat. First he was appointed as counselor in Bern. Then he was appointed, then he retired. He didn't like the diplomatic life. He says, there is no excitement in this. I would much rather be a journalist than a diplomat. What is there in diplomacy? You have to give a dinner and talk all that. So he retired. Nehru pulled him out.
You better whine.
Then he was appointed as ambassador in Sweden, I think Denmark also, and maybe Norway also. Then finally he was appointed as the full-fledged ambassador to West Germany when Konrad Adenauer was there. Adenauer said, this is the first time I can talk in German to an Indian ambassador. Otherwise, you need always interpreters and all that. That is, yeah.
So now, I'd like to ask one more question before we throw it open to the audience, which is the whole Indira Gandhi question, because she asked you to seek him out and you brought him back to India. If you can very briefly tell that story, and then I do have more questions, but I think we should turn to the audience after that.
You see, I was posted in Western Europe in 1980, so I didn't know Mr. Nambiar at all. Once my boss, the late Naushir Framji Santuk, he came over to my place and told me, look, you have to go and meet so-and-so. I said, why? No, it's not even in my country of posting, because usually you have to take the permission of the ambassador. He said, no, this is the Prime Minister's order. This is 1980. Then he told me briefly that he is a friend of all national leaders. He has been a freedom fighter himself. He's not well. So somebody has to go and look him up once in a way. So I went and met him. He was very pleasant. He was about 88 at that time. He was living in Zurich alone in the old city of Zurich. So once in 3 months I used to go to him. And then he told me that sometime in 83 I should send all his book collection and papers to Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, which I did. Then he said, I want to come back to India. So 1981 I sent the book collection. 82 I brought him to India. And he stayed with his relations in Delhi, Bangalore and all that. And back he went to Zurich. I did not know. One day suddenly I get a letter saying that I come back. I said, why? No, he said that the flies in India are very assertive. He says. That was his way. He had a wonderful sense of humor. And then I came back from my place in 1983. From 1984 onwards, he wrote to me about, to be exact, 27 letters, saying that I am now getting old, I am losing confidence, please bring me to India. And that is what Mrs. Gandhi also wanted. So finally I went in October and brought him to India. that was, I think, 22nd October or something like that, 1984. Went and met Mrs. Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi wrote to him a handwritten letter. My dear Nanu, welcome to India. You may not find the food very good in India. You are most welcome to come and at any time or meal times, you drop in at my house and for meals, or I'll send you whatever you want, I'll send it to your house. He showed me that he was very happy. 3 days later, she was assassinated. And then the whole thing, he went into a depression and, various things happened. And incidentally, I had hired a house in Delhi and he was there living quietly. And when Mrs. Gandhi was there, everybody used to come and meet him. And after she died, within 3 months, nobody started coming. You know how this is how it is. Then you want me to mention why I wrote this book? Is that
very briefly, because I do want to take questions. So
See, he died in January 1986. Before he died, I asked all his relations. They were all very highly placed people. Please take away all his goods and everything. He had a lot of those curios and books and so many things, clothes. But they said, look, he has been out of India from 1919 and this is now 86. We don't know whether he might be having a family. They will lay claim. So they did not do anything. Ultimately, it was a very sad thing. We asked the Prime Minister what to do, Rajiv Gandhi. He said, what do you do in such cases when there is unclaimed property? We give it to the police. So we had to give it to the Gulmohar Park police station. All those things were carted away. Even his Padma Vibhushan thing, everything, all those curios, everything. It was very sad. Then I forgot about it completely. In 2001, I read a review of this book by Mr. Natwar Singh. And then pops out all his work under Subhash Chandra Bose, what all he had done, all his, identity card, everything signed by Nambiar. Then I started researching, went to so many British intelligence record, declassified books and other things. And then the first draft was read in 2013, published just last month. That's my story.
I think it's a fascinating story. We tend to look at history as stories of powerful men, powerful women, but history becomes more vivid when we look at it from the perspective of the so-called marginal men, those who are witnesses to history, who appear to be the flies on the wall, but they are assertive flies. We should remember that. Thank you again. Some questions? Yes, please. Yeah. Keep it brief so that I can take more questions. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Sanket. I'm from ORF Mumbai. Congratulations for the book. Please forgive my ignorance, but as we have gone through history, we've seen that there is a perceived rivalry that we sense between Netaji Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru ji. How did ACM Nambiar balance out his relationship between the two? Perhaps it would. This is something
I'll tell you. There was no conflict. There was absolutely no conflict. You see, I've written my book. The media report that Nehru was against Bose and Bose was against Nehru. That's absolutely wrong. They were personal, very good friends. But Bose felt let down when he had his fight with Gandhiji. That Nehru at least will support him. Nehru did not support. As you know, historians have said that Nehru was a bit timid while facing Gandhiji. Whatever may be the reason, I am not a historian, I will not be able to say. I went on asking, this book also gives the Bose used to taunt him. Nambiar used to disagree with him. Don't trust Hitler, don't do this, don't do this. You are Nehru's man, that's why you are talking. You have no sense of history. But Bose did not mind at all. You see, there is a beautiful book written by Hiren Mukherjee. It was given to me by the Communist Party office, Mr. Karadkar, I think. I mentioned that. there he said that Bose was something like Arjuna. Arjuna, in order to win on Draupadi, he was looking at that, with the bow. Arrow is pointed out to that object. Nothing in this world mattered to him. That object, he was like that. One concentration. For him, nothing mattered. He took a strategic decision that for me, because I am going to Swarist, there has to be an able number 2. And there is nobody else except Nambiar. So whether Nambiar was close to Nehru, it did not matter. And Nambiar was extremely loyal to him. Nambiar knew about Bose's marriage. He kept it a secret because it was not meant to be revealed. In this book, Nehru came to know about Bose's marriage only in 1947. The first person Nehru checked was Mr. Nambiar. This letter, the Nehru letter is here in this. And then he mentioned. Then immediately thereafter, Nambiar wrote to Amiya Bose saying that, look, I have given word, promise to Bose that I will not mention anything about this. I kept my promise. But a VIP has asked me, and I do not know whether they're married or not, but this is the thing, and the child is here, etc., etc. Wife is here. So there was no functional quarrel. Now, on the other hand, Nehru would have taken ill if they had been competitors. Nehru did not utter one word to Nambiar that you were with Bose. Never. Indira Gandhi did not utter even one word. If you see all these letters Indira Gandhi has written from 1980 onwards, starting with Sanjay's death, all these letters are there in this book. And she is opening her heart to Nambiar because there was nobody else to whom she could open her heart. And Nambiar was asking her explanation. I don't have Nambiar's letter, but she is writing, she is explaining why Maneka Gandhi is against her, why this happened, why that happened, why did Blue Star take place. All these things she is explaining. So there was, to me, as I said, I'm not a historian, but there was no clash at all. Nambiar was loyal to both.
Just wait. Let him ask, and after that, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
You said he was a left-leaning journalist. Okay. So did he have a change of mind later in life? Did his worldview change?
Yeah, you can say that. You see, Mr. N. Ram gave me 26 dispatches for Hindu. That's all what is available. His letters, his dispatches did not reveal any left-leaning. He was a very balanced report. The old-time journalist. He talks about the politics, he talks about economy, he talks about commerce, he talks about the theater, he talks about music, all from Berlin. Like Walter Lippmann type of communications. But he did not reveal that he was a leftist. But in his personal, in the entourage that he was sort of mixing up, etc., they were all leftists. But as an ambassador, no, there was no such leaning or anything like that. I did not find that he was left-leaning, but he was definitely anti-imperialistic. That's all I can say.
Vapalla Balachandran Saab, thank you for your life. Thank you, Salil Tripathi Saab. It's been a wonderful session. Sir, I just want to ask you one thing. What about the strategic inputs of a man? He goes from one place to as a freedom. There have been many freedom fighters whom the people really, abhi tak, most of the people don't know what about their job. Whom is he associated to? Is he from the Prime Minister's secretary? There are so many noble, loyal people in India and as many as the world countries. Could it be the great freedom fighter? I want to ask you, when a man wants to hide or when he's doing, Subhash Chandra Bose had taken on to himself, he was not telling to any, it was a very secret where I'm going to, from what ship, where Indira ji wants to go next, when is the next, when is the Prime Minister taking a trip, all these secrets, is it needed, and what happens to so many freedom fighters who have gone underground and all that? and who are not in projection of what exactly they have done for the motherland. What is this madness, or what is this fallacy of doing something for no sake at all? Traveling hinterlands, traveling so many places, for whose sake? Is it passion? Is it what? Is it leadership? They don't want any, right, sir? Are you getting it?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, what accounts for patriotism and nationalism?
Yes.
Why do people take these risks?
Military, yes, risks.
Why do people take these risks
Military secrets?
to fight for the nation?
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
going from this place to that secret, where Rajiv Gandhi is going, where Sanjay Gandhi, which flight Zia is taking, very top secrets.
Yeah,
Where
thank you.
where does he want to go next?
Why is it that people have this passion to fight for the nation, and because of it they have to lead these secret lives?
No, you don't have to lead any secret lives to fight for the nation. This is what my opinion is. I worked 36 years for the government, and I did not lead a secret life or anything like that. I can say I have contributed as much for the country by doing an honest service for 36 years. So I don't know. I mean,
I'm sure there are many people alive because of you. Thank you.
One, if you don't mind, this is not self-propaganda or anything like that. The writers in India, or at least people, they do not link INA with India Legion. India Legion. For example, I got an invitation from ICHR for a 3-day seminar in Delhi. They're only talking about INA. But nobody talks about Indian Legion. This latest issue of Outlook has given the ladies, that is the what you call Rani of Jhansi.
Rani of Jhansi, yes. There's a book by Vera Hildebrand, which I've just read and did a session at Jaipur.
Next one is excerpt from my book. Now, the editor has called him as the old captain of Berlin. So I asked him why. He said, no, the earlier thing was about young Captain Lakshmi, and this is about old captain, the old captain of Berlin. So I asked the editor. So he says that, in a way, it's good that both are combined, because without that, we will never be able to study both. Thank you.
Ranjit, I think you have a question very quickly. Comment? Go for it. Go for it. I think if it's a comment, all the more so, because then we don't have to respond.
I hesitate to say this because you've made you've shared with us the story of an exceptional and remarkable person. But it's probably just as well that the story of the Friar Indian Legion has been severed from the story of the INA, because, as you know, the Free India Legion was one of the foreign departments, not of the Wehrmacht, but of the Waffen-SS. So after May 1945 and under the Nuremberg Statutes, its members would have been war criminals. Yeah. So we have a heroic cast that we place around the INA, and there are facts about the complicity of some of our leaders with the Axis powers and their policies that for some reason we are not prepared to face today. We also have enough vivid and brutal evidence of what Japanese rule meant across Asia. And
Andaman and Nicobar Islands,
exactly,
particularly.
Yeah. So that was, I hesitate to ask you that because it's not the kind of question I want to end with, and I come from a partly military family. So it's with hesitation and sorrow that I place this observation before you.
No, those are very valid and very good points, Ranjit. And if we had more, I had questions on that, about both the choices that Subhash Bose made. But for that, he has to write another book, I think. Yeah. Thank you.